The Salem Witch Trials
by Jennifer Lehman
and Grace Hudson. This question has probably been asked for many, many years. The fact is, there might not be one straight answer due to all the issues that occurred back in that era. The Salem Witch Trials took place around 1692. They were a series of accusations of men and women in Salem that caused a hysteria. Many people in the town of Salem were accused of using witchcraft, which was why they were convicted. This whole event started out with a group of girls under the age of 14 experiencing strange fits that included screaming, cursing, hallucinations, and contortion. Physicians could not find any medical explanation. The girls started to call out who had bewitched them all. This was where everything started to get out of control. Months later, many others began to experience these odd outbreaks. People started to accuse more and more people of witchcraft. Hundreds were questioned and tried for being witches. More than 150 people were suspected of witchcraft in Salem Village. Many of the accused fought for their innocence, but the judge did not change his mind. In September of 1692, 28 people had been convicted, 20 were executed, and 5 people died in prison before their trial. In Europe, many cases of witchcraft had occurred, much more than in America. In Germany, around 1,500 people were accused of using witchcraft and were executed. Between 1450 and 1750, about 100,000 trials took place in Europe, and there were more than 40,000 executions that occurred. With everyone from Europe coming to the American colonies, it is probably not a surprise that some of them brought the same fears of witchcraft along with them. The Salem witch trials were one of the saddest periods of time in history.
Salem Village, Massachusetts was where this horrible event happened. Many people get confused with Salem, Oregon and Salem, Massachusetts. Oregon did not become a state until the 1800s, while the Salem witch trials happened in the 1600s. The reason why many people may get this confused is because it is no longer named Salem, Massachusetts.
Salem Village was founded by people of a strict religion. They believed in an unforgivable God who watched and judged every action they took. This Protestant religion was called Puritanism. Many Puritans in the town of Salem did not think disease or natural disasters were caused by accidents. They thought that everything was caused by God's disapproval from the feelings of the community. This might be one of the causes of the Salem witch trials. The life of a Puritan made religion a very important part of their daily life. Puritans did not believe that things happened on accident. They believed that the devil was looking for a way to make innocent people commit terrible things. Puritans believed that God had determined everyone's fate before they died. Many believed that since the Puritans were unaware of what God didn't witness, this was the reason why many were fearful.
The Reverend during this time was Samuel Parris. He had a daughter and a niece, Betty Parris and Abigail Williams, living with him. He did not allow the girls to play games outside, such as hide and seek, so they turned to books about prophecy and fortunes. The girls started finding other girls to join them and create circles to practice what they have been reading. The Parris' slave, Tituba, started joining them and telling them about witchcraft and demons. Betty and Abigail started experiencing odd behavior, so the Reverend took them to the local physician. The physician was horrified as he watched the girls contort themselves and scream out random things. Since a book had recently been published, Memorable Providences by Cotton Mather, describing witchcraft, the physician declared witchcraft.
Hanged on June 10th.
Bridget Bishop.
Hanged on July 19th.
Sarah Good, Rebecca Nurse, Susanna Martin, Elizabeth Howe, Sarah Wilds.
Hanged on August 19th.
George Burroughs, John Proctor, John Willard, George Jacobs.
September 19th.
Giles Corey, pressed to death.
Hanged on September 22nd.
Martha Corey, Alice Parker, Anne Pudetier.
There were also other accused witches that were not hanged but died in prison.
Sarah Osborne, Roger Toothaker, Linda Destin, on Ann Foster.
There were many punishments and executions that went on during the Salem witch trials. Being accused as a witch in Salem meant you were most likely going to be punished in some way. A Puritan's way of punishing someone was to embarrass and shame the person. They would also cause pain. Punishments for misbehaving in the Puritan religion included being put into stocks and pillory and being shamed to the entire public. During the Salem witch trials, there were many types of executions and punishments for the accused people. There were also many ways of being suspected as a witch. Witches were known not to cry, so if an accused person did not shed tears, they would be suspected as a witch. There were also many cases of dunking to determine if a person was a witch or not. It was said that if you floated, you would be a witch, but if you sunk, you would be innocent. When people were convicted of being a witch, they most likely ended up being executed. The most used type of execution was to be hanged. There were many punishments for being a witch. There was one punishment where a witch was seated on a ducking stool and dunked into water repeatedly to either get a confession out or give more information about other witches. In one case, there was an accused witch that was pressed to death by large rocks as a way of torture. Many of these punishments brought more panic to Salem village. People feared if they would be next.
Betty Paris, Abigail Williams, and a few of the girls from their circle first started their accusations with Tituba, Paris's slave, Sarah Good, a homeless woman, and Sarah Osborne, who hasn't gone to church in years. When the girls were around the three accused women, they would go into odd contortions or say that they were hurting them. Other villagers claimed that when one of the accused women had been by their home, their bread and butter went bad, or one of their animals had been born with a deformity. Even though the three women had been put to jail, the girls still were accusing more people. Even a 4-year-old, Dracus Good, was accused of biting a girl and been arrested. Most of the accusations were directed towards people that didn't uphold a good name in the community. The former minister, George Burroughs, was accused by Ann Putnam. Ann Putnam said that George Burroughs was the master of all witches in Massachusetts and the leader of the Salem Coven. The accused soon learned that confession was a quick way to avoid the gallows.
By the end of all the executions in Salem on September 22, 1692, 19 people had been hanged and 1 had been pressed to death. The damage did not just finish after the executions. The families of the accused were affected by this awful event as well. The Salem witch trials devastated the community of Salem Village. Many of the victims' families blamed the judges and the ones who pointed fingers at their loved ones. After the Salem witch trials, many people still question how the start of this strange outbreak had led up to such a huge hysteria.